All right, we've got a delicious shrimp dinner recipe for you today. Welcome, welcome. This is super easy, family friendly, and we're going to show you how to do it. It kind of looks like a soup almost, and we're going to be making some bread that goes with it, and it pairs really well with a glass of red wine. Here's what we need: shrimp, spinach, soy sauce, honey. We've got mushrooms and lemon, and a few other odds and ends. I'll put the entire recipe and ingredient list in the description below, so be sure to check that out for specific measurements on this recipe and steps involved. But you can see here, the first step is taking the shrimp out of the bag. Yes, we're buying shrimp in a bag, but you don't need anything fancy here. We're going to save a little money by doing so, and we're going to rinse them off, and we're going to be deveining, detailing, or deshelling and deveining the shrimp just like that. Now, the uncooked shrimp you can see is a gray color, so that, like I said, tells you it's uncooked. The pink stuff has already been cooked, so you basically have to warm it up. So we're going to buy the the uncooked shrimp, and again, we're going to be rinsing them off. And check out the technique in terms of how you can, deshell these. Take the tails off, take the little exoskeleton or whatever off, and devein them if they need be. The vein has a dark kind of strip along the spinal column, but in this case we don't need to. We're just taking the shell off. Now we're going to be chopping up some mushrooms, putting it into a baking dish, kind of a somewhat deep pan here, you can see, and we will be slicing it doesn't have to be chopped or anything like that, just slice them, and we're going to do that to the mushrooms, put them with the shrimp, and we'll take our lemons and do the same thing, although we're not throwing them in. We're going to be squeezing the lemon juice out. You can see the seeds of the lemon pop out with it, so we're going to be taking those seeds. You don't want to eat those, right? So get them nice and all that extracted. Take the seeds out, and next we'll take some olive oil. Again, exact measurements in the description below. This video just shows you the general process, right, on what the steps are. But for approximation purposes, we've got, I don't know, what was that? 1/4 of a cup times 2, plus a little bit of soy sauce. What we're going to be making here is a delicious sauce that's olive oil based. That's going to allow it basically to simmer and bake, the shrimp to simmer and bake in these juices. We're going to add some honey as well, about a spoonful. And that honey might stick to the spoon, so you might have to scrape it off, or you could heat it up a little bit. And next we're going to add a little bit of chili flavoring. Now all this is optional, right? If you don't do spices, or if you don't want any extra chili related flavors, then don't do it, right? And we will stir all that up quite gently, making sure that honey gets off the spoon okay, and then we're going to just pour it into the baking dish as shown here. Pretty simple, right? And this is going to create an out-of-this-world flavor. Perfect for dipping. You want to make sure there's enough, so you don't want to just coat the shrimp, for example. You want to make sure that there's plenty of it in there, because we're going to be making bread, and that's going to be dipping for your bread during the meal. Next, we'll take some spinach and put that in there with it. Bit of an art here, not a science, but couple handfuls, a handful and a half should do the trick, and we're going to stir that up really well. All right. By the way, if this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Click the like button, subscribe, and consider sharing this video with somebody who might benefit from a cheap, delicious meal like this. All right, let's get back to business here. We'll set the oven temperature relatively high, 450 or so. This will depend on your altitude and other factors, but for example, what kind of oven do you have, right? And notice we put some saran wrap over it. We let it sit for 30 minutes or so. 20 minutes will be fine, just to absorb all those juices. We're going to stir it up one last time. And make sure everything is evenly coated. Now, before we put that in the oven, we're going to prepare the bread because shrimp doesn't take very long to cook, right? Maybe you've had shrimp that tastes really dry before. Well, it's probably been overcooked. So we're going to take our bread here and we're going to have it like this, and then just take a stick of butter and just rub it right on there. You can certainly use a knife, and this way is obviously a little messier, but this allows you to really kind of get all edges, all surfaces of the bread. And this is just regular butter, right? And again, it's a bit of a hot mess, but I mean, hey, whatever, you're in the kitchen, right? You could use a tool to help you out if you need to, or if you are a little dainty, right? You don't want to have to get this under your or on your fingers. This will be just fine as well. And it depends on how much butter you want also, right? But the idea here is to coat the bread quite liberally. If you don't want to use butter, you could certainly use olive oil. That might apply a little easier and be a little healthier of an option. Or you could do both. Go ahead and sprinkle some of that on as well and coat it just like that. All right, next we'll add a little garlic salt. Don't want to overdo it. And once that is fully sprinkled on, we're going to take some cheese, some shredded cheese here. This is some of our go-to for bread. It's really, really good. Again, exact type, measurements, all that down in the description below if you're wondering. Okay, we'll put that on the bread. And now this basically the shrimp goes into the oven. You can see we're doing pizza as well tonight for the kiddos. But the kiddos like this as well, believe it or not. They're not fans of the spinach. They definitely eat around that, but the juices are really good and they love the shrimp. Okay, so we'll get that started and we will put the bread in as well. Right over here. Got a lot going on in the kitchen tonight. And we'll go ahead and close that up and let it bake. Now for how long? Hard to tell. You don't want to walk away, but you want that shrimp to be nice and pink and plump. If it's pink and shriveled, you've let it sit for too long. I'll put, again, some approximate times for you. But you definitely don't want to grab a drink and walk away, right? Start with 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and check on it and see how it goes. And you can stir it frequently as well, making sure that heat is being distributed equally. And there you go. Check it out. We'll take it out of the oven. This is what it should look like. It's not overcooked at all. That pink, the shrimp is definitely pink and moist still. No gray at all. And then the bread, you can kind of eyeball it as well. We'll put it on the center rack to give it a little more heat. And you can actually kick it on over to broil to give it some extra heat. You want that top of the bread to cook first. So again, that shrimp will cook faster than the bread typically. So you could even put the bread in a little earlier should you so choose. But once we're done, we're going to pour it into, you could certainly use a plate, but bowls are a little better because again, it's got that soupy-like texture because we used a lot of olive oil and made that delicious base in plentiful amounts earlier. So we'll put that in, and that is going to serve as a delicious dipping sauce for the bread. This is the color of the bread. Slightly overdone, but in my opinion, quite perfect. My wife likes the bread a little bit on the darker side. I like mine to be a little lighter brown. And we'll section the bread like this and serve as shown. Again, eat this with a fork or spoon, and then you'll have some yummy stuff to dip that bread into once it is done. Out of this world, easy, delicious shrimp recipe. Hopefully this has helped you and your family out. Bon appetit.